They enjoy their own space to test themselves and find their own rhythm. Women professionals are like scientists. Many of them want to make new discoveries or solve for problems where others have failed. Women invest in themselves and become knowledge seekers. They are not afraid to ask questions which, when given a safe platform to express themselves. Successful women don't rely on favors. They earn respect and truly believe they can influence their own advancement by serving others. Looking for respect more than recognition, the most successful women don't seek to become star of the show, but they enable others to create a great show. They don't become star of the show, but they enable others to create a great show. This is the collaborative aspect. In other words, being in the spotlight is not what drives them, but rather it is the ability to influence positive outcomes with maximum impact. When confronted with a challenge, women look for the opportunity within. They see the glass as half full rather than half empty. They push the boundaries, and when faced with adverse circumstances, they learn all they can from it. Optimism is their mindset because they see opportunity in everything. Women enjoy stretching their perspective to broaden their observations. Many women are not hesitant to peel the onion in order to get to the root of the matter. Women do not swing on the extreme ends of risk-taking and are seen as moderate risk-takers. Because risk-taking ability at the extremes is not very healthy for an organization, but moderate risk-takers are women, which helps the organization to develop the business. They are more pragmatic in their approach. Many women have learned not to depend upon others for their advancement and thus have a tendency to be too independent. A woman's independent nature is her way of finding her focus and taking up her pursuits. Many women also see through an entrepreneurial lens to best enable the opportunities before them. Women enjoy inspiring others to achieve. They know what it's like to be the underdog and work hard not to disappoint themselves and others. Women leaders, in particular, often have high standards. Women don't have to be right all the time, make good consensus builders, and will more likely enjoy participating in a team environment. Whether at home or work, women are often the glue that keeps things together, and each one of you will vouch for this statement. It's the women who act as the glue, whether it's the home front, office front, the community front. Women are usually the ones to secure the foundational roots of the family and protect family and cultural traditions from wavering. Even today, in our own homes, and many of you would agree with me, if a guest comes and asks, calls the child in the house and says, "Which class are you studying?" The father will look up and down. "Beta, second or third." That is what he'll. Whereas the mother would say tomorrow what examination he has, what test he has to face, where he is weak. She will call inside, "Come in, don't go and stand there, you come and do your science." See, that is how, you bind yourself at every place. They are the ones who secure the foundational roots of the family and to protect family and cultural traditions from wavering. They provide the leadership within the home and in the workplace to assure that the legacies remain strong by being fed with the right nutrients and ingredients. The most successful women are big believers in team building and the enforcement of mission, goals, and values to assure that everyone is on the same page with like intentions. We also need to look at the negatives of women, because there was a long list of positives which I listed out. But there are some, if all were positives, we become angels. So there are some negative elements which we can look at, and then maybe if we polish them, translate them as positive ones, I think the success and our abilities would multiply. Women leaders are often loners, and they come not so strong in networking. You know, the way men network at whatever levels, even at the lowest levels to the highest levels, women are not great networkers because they have, if it is 7 o'clock, it's party time, barring a few, they always think, what is happening at home? What is happening to my child? What's happening to my mother-in-law? You know, there is a kind of a divided loyalty at that point in time. So they become not so great networkers. Don't get carried away by page 3 of Times of India. International studies reveal that women have been found not as aggressive while asking for rewards such as promotions, incentives, or taking credit for the work done. Do you do that? I mean, we say it is my duty, I have done it. You know, yes, I've been assigned this task, I've been asked to do this project, I have done it. We don't, showcase the way it should be. So it's a negative. You need to do it because the counterpart men are doing that. So we need to, be, and we generally, men go and ask for promotions. Why? Because it is the career which determines their achievement in life. The career progression is an indicator. If I have to say my husband is a general manager, it is something different. Whereas he may not be so, feeling so great to say that, I am a general manager in a bank or a chairman in a bank. That's how the society works. So men, for them, it's a social indicator. It's an indicator in the community. It's the indicator in the family. So they always say, "Sir, मुझे promotion तो देना ही है, मैं ये किया, वो किया, X, Y, Z किया." Whereas a woman, okay, if she doesn't happen, ठीक है, anyway, everything is for good. Something I may have, otherwise I would have been transferred. Good, I am not promoted. Somewhere we settle down that way, right? I think she is in agreement with me. So we don't ask for promotions, we don't ask for our rewards. Any incentive when it comes to, ठीक है, the man gets, anyway, the man is the breadwinner for a particular family. चलता है, मुझे नहीं मिला तो भी. We don't go and thumb the desk and ask what we deserve. That is a negative for us. So these, if we try to correct ourselves, in all this, I think lot more can be added to the positive list of the characteristics of women leaders. As a Chinese proverb says, the fish rots from the head. And so it is with businesses and other organizations. The buck starts and stops in the boardroom. The book authored by Bob Garrett, I think if you happen to get a chance, please pick up that book and read. It's a very interesting book. Highlights the importance of effective corporate governance. The book has been extensively updated because it was published quite a few years ago in the early 2000s, following the corporate scandals of the 2000 Enron, WorldCom, Tyco, and abysmal boardroom standards that the recent credit crunch and ensuing global financial crisis have brought to light. A company's success or failure depends much on the performance of the board. So you know how important is the role of a director. And it's the few men and women who make or mar a company. Bob Garrett clarifies and integrates the roles and tasks of director by arguing that directors must develop a broader mindset to deal with the uncertainty of high-level issues such as policy formulation, strategy, and accountability. Now, let's look at the role of directors, what it is in store and how it would impact the her in the boardroom. It is the board of directors who must provide intrinsic leadership and direction at the top of the organization, establish and maintain its vision, mission, and values. Directors are required to determine the future of the organization, its strategy, structure, and protect its assets and reputation. Many times, directors become the reputational risk for a company. You know the recent Satyam case, what has happened. It's some of the directors, the promoted directors, who have become the highest reputational risk. So they always carry more than anything, more than any other risk, they carry a reputational risk. Should they deviate from certain principles, from the established culture, I think we are in for trouble. They also need to consider how their decisions relate to stakeholders and the regulatory framework. Stakeholders are generally seen to be, who they are, a whole list of people, including the community. Directors have the ultimate responsibility for the long-term prosperity of the company. They are required in law to apply skill and care in exercising their duty to the company and are subject to fiduciary duties. If they are in breach of their duties or act improperly, they may be made personally liable in both civil and criminal law, which was, I said in one word, as a reputational risk which is loaded on them. On occasions, directors can be held responsible for acts of the company. Directors also owe certain duties to the stakeholders. They are accountable to the shareholders and other stakeholders for the company's performance and can be removed from office by them, or the shareholders can pass a special resolution requiring the directors to act in a particular way. They have a key role in the determination of the ethical position of the company, which the recent example I quoted is, it will speak volumes, and all of us know about it from the very same city where we are talking about. So we move from here to diversity on the board, which Mishra ji touched up in a great way. First, I must say that the Bharatiya Mahila Bank is a bank which, the word Mahila, is for women. And it's not only for women, we also cater to men. But it comes with an all-women board. Perhaps the first of its kind, all of us, the 8 directors on the board, are women. So this could be one of the lead examples of having an all-women board in the country. So what happens? Why is a diverse board important? In fact, I would say when it is an all-women board, I look to a diverse board. Then it becomes a balanced board. So you should have both the genders, or all kinds of, I would say minorities, any kind of diversity. And the first kind of diversity is the women. The biggest diverse group in the world is women. Great teams, whether it's in business or sport, include individuals with different strengths and different backgrounds, each bringing their skills and experience to bear. Engagement of employees and diversity of thinking achieve results. A boardroom should be diverse and reflect the employee or customer base. Women are the biggest diverse group in general and amongst the workforce in the world. The importance of improving the gender balance of corporate boards is increasingly recognized across the world. Some countries, including France and Italy, are considering significant action, and some, including Norway, Spain, and Australia, have made rapid strides in this area. Diverse boards are more open to discussions and healthy dissent. See, we always think in a board, when whatever proposals that are placed before the board, it has always to be consented. Dissent management is itself an art. You have to also be willing to, the chairman of the board, have to have the mental capability, because it requires a mental capability mental stamina to manage dissent on the board. Because people are averse to dissent. They say we can, go have a coaxing or a kind of a dialogue to lure the director. But the director should be allowed, there has to be camaraderie of the board. At the same time, if somebody has a dissent, valid dissent, I think we should have the capacity to absorb that. Because dissent management also becomes very important. New ideas and wide-ranging and perspectives fuel creative thinking, and as a result of a continued infusion of ideas and questions, compel innovation. As Mishra ji was telling, there's going to be a lot of age gap in the boardrooms. You will have maybe a 70-year-old gentleman or a woman chairing the board, and there could be different age groups, because the youngsters who are moving into the board, even there could be a generation gap. It's about 30 years. So the thoughts, the ideas, the speed with which they come, they have an urge to achieve. They have an urge to, use technology in so many places, which a person of 70, 72 may not be very acceptable to it. So, at the same time, you have to have a capacity to absorb the suggestions, innovations. At the same time, well, if there is a dissent, we should be able to manage. The regulatory environment in India around corporate governance is changing rapidly, and those entrusted with governance, that is the board of directors and the audit committee, are being made responsible for the prevention and detection of frauds. There is a strong business case for balanced boards. because women-only boards or men-only boards are not very healthy. A balanced board, having diverse members, I think will add a lot of value to the company. There is a strong business case for balanced boards. Inclusive and diverse boards are more likely to be effective boards, better able to understand their customers and stakeholders and to benefit from fresh perspectives, new ideas, vigorous challenges, and broad experience. Thus, in turn, it leads to better decision making. Various countries have been making endeavors to improve the women directors on the board of companies. Scandinavian countries, that is Norway, Sweden, and Finland, have taken the lead in this context, and the percentage of women on board is about 35 to 38%. I just culled out some statistics to see how various countries are placed. China has 6.6%, India 4.1%, which Mishraji highlighted, Indonesia 4.1%, Pakistan 4.6%, Thailand 8.7%, Australia 9.9%, Hong Kong 7.6%, New Zealand 11.4%, Singapore 5.7%, Greece 9.5%, Iceland, you know how big is Iceland? You can imagine on the map. It's as big as Goa. 14.3%, Italy 3.6%, Netherlands 10.3%, Norway 35.9%, Spain 6.6%, Switzerland 8.4%, UK 7.8%. And lastly, I have kept one country. Guess that country. No, US everybody knows. Japan. No, it's 0.9%. We think Japan, we get carried away because of the Nissans and the Hondas and, Sonys and Panasonics, and we think Japan is a great country. It's a great country, but women don't enjoy it as much as we enjoy. They are all very good factory workers. They are all employed in factories. But if you see anybody rising up in their career to become the president of, Toyota, or somebody becoming the president of Sony, you will not find a single woman in the senior executive cadre. That's the bane of Japan. In fact, Japanese, I should also share with you this, when we launched the Bharatiya Mahila Bank, there were a lot of Japanese television crews coming to my office to understand, and I was very curious. I said, Japan is such a great country, why are you again coming? And somebody said, this is edition 1, we'll have an edition 2 of this. I said, they said, no madam, as you think it is not so. We don't encourage women to climb the ladder and reach the top. Recently, I think perhaps the first woman, I think it is Nomura Bank or somewhere, first time a woman has come on the top, near top. I don't say she's a president or the chairperson, but she's come near the top. So Japan, it's abysmally low. You will be surprised, the leading daily there, like our Times of India or whatever newspaper we have, they are first time come out with women's supplement. We have every week, every paper having, all kinds of, pages for women. Whereas they said this is the first edition that will come out, and he wanted to do a story on the bank. And then we want to tell them, this is